Welcome everybody, and thank you for making time to be with us for our April All Call. Today we have, in addition to me, we have Peter Kyle on the line, the other Rotary International Director, and we have our Rotary International Director nominee, Jeremy Hurst, who is with us, and I believe we also have Barry Rassin, our TRF trustee. So our agenda tonight is we are actually going to let Jeremy do the board highlights. I don't know how many of you know, but recently, because we've gone virtual, the president of Rotary has elected to have not just the director-elects, but the director nominees join in as what we call backbenchers to the meetings, which is a great thing because then the director nominees and the director-elects get a feel for what happens at a Rotary board meeting. So because Jeremy's done that, he's been taking really good notes. So he has agreed to be the person today to share with you highlights from the board. And of course, Peter and I will be here if we need to back up anything or give you the backstory. After Jeremy is done, we're going to segue to our trustee, Barry Rassin, who has some similar information from the Rotary Board of Trustees. And then finally, Peter and I will wrap up with just some updates on some zone initiatives that are happening. And then we'll call it a night. So having said that, Jeremy, I'm going to turn the program over to you and let you help illumine us on the board highlights.
So thank you so much, Stephanie. Great to be here, and thanks for being given this awesome responsibility to deliver these highlights to you today. I have to say, I haven't heard a couple of people say, well, it was a normal board meeting. Yes, it was a good board meeting, a normal board meeting. I can tell you, for me and for the new team going in, there's nothing normal here. It's all exciting. I mean, every item on the agenda or every resolution enactment discussed, we're hanging on every word of the experienced directors, Peter and Stephanie and the Barrys of the world and the trustees. So hopefully when I deliver these, you'll see how excited I am to be your incoming director, and there's a few interesting nuggets there. I hope you agree. So as Stephanie said, it was a busy couple of weeks. We not only had a board meeting, which was meant to take Monday and Tuesday mornings last week, but also the week before that, we had a joint Rotary Foundation trustee and RI board meeting, which Barry will speak to in more detail later. The interesting thing was we managed to cover the full agenda of the board meeting that was of last Monday and Tuesday in Monday morning only, with an extra half an hour spent. So it just shows the real value that we're getting out of meeting virtually through Zoom and how effective and efficient we can be. I did have a couple of comments from people saying, well, we wish we'd had a little more time to discuss things. So I think we have to balance that with Zoom as we go forward. But certainly we're becoming more efficient and effective. And that's one of the decisions the board will be taking, is how we move forward in that going forward using Zoom and hybrid meetings. One of the things that makes it so effective is the concept of a consent list, where items and reports are reviewed by board members ahead of time and pre-approved, so their content doesn't need to be discussed in person at the meeting. And this week it was a long one. This time it was a long one. Out of the 30 items originally on the agenda, only 7 were left to discuss at length, which means that we could really get into detail with those, or I say we, and the directors and the directors-elect particularly, under President Holger's chair. But it meant that they could really be discussed in more detail perhaps than they would have been otherwise. So I think that's a great strategy. Obviously, things like approval of minutes, ratifications of decisions, all those things that reports to the General Secretary were on that consent list and approved. The Treasurer's report was in more detail. Great news there. Even, in fact, partly because of COVID, even though revenues down 14 million, expenses of Rotary International year to date were down 22 million, which means a surplus of 8 million. So we've been able to run ourselves more effectively and more efficiently from an accounting perspective as well. Moving on to the executive committee report, directors obviously is run by our very own director, Stephanie. One of the recommendations they made was that all future RI presidents consider authorizing committees to meet virtually rather than in person when possible, for the exact reasons we've been talking about. The operations review committee report, they advised the board that they wish to establish a 3-year pilot project beginning July 1st, 2021 to engage and cultivate young leaders and help inform the board of the thoughts and perception of younger members. And great to see that reach out continuing. This requests that the president-elect appoint an advisor for up to 3 select committees a year and as a non-voting member, encourages the president-elect to consider diversity and inclusion and give a special consideration to younger past governors and Rotaractors. And Haresh, I know you were heavily involved in that committee in the past as a young past district governor. And these advisors should be included on all committee communications and be invited to attend all committee meetings. So great engagement of those individuals, especially the younger Rotaractors. Recognizing that younger Rotarians can best make an impact at committee level where policy recommendations are discussed and generated. And that, I think, was a smart move on behalf of the board, and have continued that. And of course, it also includes request future presidents appoint a Rotaract representative to attend the board meetings themselves as an observer, which is already being done, but that's been continued. Some other highlights. The Operations Review Committee defined what a partner is under the code of Rotary policies. And partner is now defined as one of a couple of the same or opposite sex with legally married or civil union status or in a mutually recognized relationship. So moving in that direction that the world is heading, certainly diversity, equity, and inclusion being an important part of what we are and who we are. And it's good to see that that's been stated clearly, so there's no misunderstanding of that. One of the things that the Election Review Committee receives is complaints from Rotary clubs on the elections of the various governors, and that's intriguing to read. We didn't go into this in detail this occasion, but that's one of the goals of that committee, is to review those complaints and find whether they're with merit or without merit concerning future governors, the 2023-24 governors, for example. And so again, nice to know the board is looking in detail at each one of those governor choices as they happen, and making sure that everything's being handled fairly and effectively and transparently. I mean, that's so important for our credibility as an organization, of course. The Constitution and Bylaws Committee, another exciting area, but it is because they reviewed 74 files containing proposed legislation for the 2022 council legislation and found them not effective at this time. 35 items were considered regular, and 13 items regular and amended, but 26 defective. And their goal is to make sure that the wordsmithing and the details of these enactments are nailed down so that it can be taken to the legislation as effectively as possible. So an important committee. Barry's on the call, and as some of you may know, that he chairs the Shaping Rotary's Future Committee. The report was one of them on the consent list, so it wasn't discussed in detail, but there was some interesting discussion later on how that works. There was also a committee report from the Joint Committee on Partnerships, which I've been sitting on, which is now sunsetted. And they approved a 3-year renewal of Rotary's service partnership with the Peace Corps, which I thought was an interesting and important decision. The Rotaract Committee report, I think, is worth delving into as well. It strongly encourages each director and the respective zone leadership team to engage Rotaract multi-district information organization leaders, quite a mouthful, MDIOs, for those of you who are not aware of those organizations, and where possible and appropriate, especially in Rotary institutes, leadership training, and in service and membership engagement activities. So, by the way, for those of you who haven't registered, there's a great opportunity coming up for you to register for the presidential conference to be held in May with the Ascension MDIO. And I think, Stephanie, maybe you'll be giving more details on that a little later. And lastly, the Rotaract Committee encouraged district Rotaract chairs and district membership chairs to develop strategies to encourage current and former Rotaractors to join an existing Rotary club or help form a new Rotary club in the future. And again, important that innovation of Rotaract at a district and club level, not just on a global level with Rotary. The District Conference President's Representative Program has been evaluated, and that's an important one. Obviously, when you get a representative from RI and of the RI President at your conference, certainly been a passionate, one that's passionately been held and utilized and leveraged in the past. But the board has now agreed to implement enhancements to that program, including enhancing minimum representative requirements, increasing representative training, improving program valuation methods, and incorporating a regular program of reviews effective 1st of July 2021. So the goal here is to make sure that when these presence representatives come, whether it be virtually or in person, that they deliver their message and they create value for the districts. And value can only be delivered by understanding perhaps more about what their role is and be trained. So I thought that was a good move, a smart move in a sense of ensuring we would provide that additional value. The membership committee, they agreed to adopt a new membership development recognition program called the Membership Society. Not too much detail on that yet, and they're going to be looking into the details about what that's going to involve. But I think that's good to know the membership will be recognized with this society additionally, and the importance of Grow Rotary and bringing your members to the table will be recognized as we move forward. So more to that to come in the future. They also agreed to develop the strategy to increase the number of women in Rotary and women in leadership positions in particular, to understand and prioritize where these opportunities might exist, and analyze this by zone and region. And also the number of women not only in Rotary, but also in Rotaract. So we want to make sure that we're leveraging this opportunity to increase the numbers of the by far most intelligent and strongest sex that coming to the table, so that we get that balance that we don't have right now in many of our districts and many of our clubs. Okay, so the goal is really to accelerate the inclusion of more women as participants, members, and leaders. The districting committee reported, obviously, as we know, certain districts unfortunately fall short of numbers, and so some districts with memberships between 1,100 and 1,199, which is that core risk area, which have been agreed, 4 in Brazil, 1 in USA, and 1 in Australia, will need to submit a district growth plan by October 1st this year. And a number of districts in Indonesia, Chile, and New Jersey, USA, New Zealand, unfortunately will have to merge. And that's something we, again, should be aware of when we're looking at growing Rotary, is that gives us an opportunity to keep our district strong and not go through that process. Regional leaders teams. This was an interesting proposal that came out of zones 26 and 27. The director from there, and she with her team proposed that a 5-year zone pilot project will be put in place to replace the existing regional leadership teams that support zone 26 and 27 with a regional resource model. And the idea of that regional resource model is it's more of a flatter structure as opposed to the hierarchical structure of zone leaders, with regional cadre of specialists that not only work with district governors and district leadership, but also work at Rotary Club level and Rotarian and Rotaractor level. So my understanding is that whilst this didn't come from the Shaping Rotary Future Committee, that's actually aligned with some of the ideas that the Shaping Rotary Futures Committee that Barry chairs has been delivering on. So it'll be interesting to see how effective this is as we move forward as an alternative to the existing model. The Communications Committee reported that they extended the deadline for the visual brand guideline to be for clubs, both Interact, Rotaract, and Rotary clubs and Rotary fellowships, to be in compliance with the brand guidelines for the clubs, to be the extensions gone from the 30th of June 2022 to 30th of June 2023, and for fellowships from 30th of December 2020 to 31st of December 2021. That gives us a little more time to get our act together on branding. I'm not suggesting we take that time. We should all be doing this right now. But that certainly is allowed for us to have a little bit of a breather in making sure this happens and we have that correct branding and consistent branding across our clubs, districts, and zones as we move forward. So that really is it. Hopefully I've covered most things there. I'll leave the Rotary Board and Trustees joint meeting to Barry, because I think that sort of falls under his remit more. But thanks for the time. Thanks for the opportunity. I hope you felt my enthusiasm.
Jeremy, it's so good to know that you pay attention at these meetings. You're going to be a great director. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Barry. Barry, you want to catch us up to speed on what's happening with the trustees?
Thank you, Director Stephanie. First of all, understand I can't speak as fast as Jeremy does. Don't know how he does that, but anyway, just a few things from the trustees. One really great news is that we've only had 10 cases of polio in the last 6 months. Okay, and that's record setting, and only 2 this year. And again, we are really doing well in Pakistan and Afghanistan. We need to continue to support them. We need to continue to make sure that we raise the fund, that 50 million that we need to raise, so that we get the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation $100 million. So we very important. At our joint meeting, we spent one of the days just talking about travel cost and what we've saved this last year due to COVID-19 restrictions and no travel, and what are we going to do going forward. And during that meeting, we went into breakout rooms and talked in detail and made some recommendations, all of which are being considered. Meantime, today at the foundation, at the trustee meeting, we are making a recommendation that we reduce our travel costs by 25%. Now, we set that as a goal, with the idea being that we look at every line item that has travel in it and determine which ones we could reduce by 25% or more, or those that maybe we can't. But overall, the goal is to come up with a 25% reduction in the cost of travel. And that will go to the board as a request for the board to consider the same thing, so that we're both aligned in the same. And President Holger was at the trustee meeting, so he's well aware of that. So that was a big part of the joint meeting as to what we should be doing. We also spent a lot of time, our trustee meeting was basically Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, so we're just out of it. We spent a lot of time talking about our financial position, where we are, how we are compared to budget. The good news is that our investment earnings are $112 million ahead of budget, which is good news. And so overall, we're $128 million ahead of budget with revenue. And for our program awards, our grants, et cetera, we're 34.4 million over budget, if you will. We're spent more on grants than we normally do by 34 million. A lot of that is due to COVID-19 and the specialty. So the good news in my mind is that we continue doing what we always do, and we added the COVID-19 grants on top of that. So you saw that kind of increase. Just looking through my agenda here. For Rotaract, you may remember that we started a pilot last year as to Rotaract clubs must have at least 5 members donate a minimum of $50 to the Rotary Foundation during the year, and then we would send them a digital certificate. And that has resulted in some positive benefits coming from the foundation, which is great. So we will continue that pilot moving into the future. Also on Rotaract, the trustees made a decision to request the secretary to continue to explore donor engagement strategies for Rotaract. We all know how we've been elevating Rotaract. What's important now is we ask Rotaract to come back and be part of the contribution process for our Rotary Foundation. So we are going to encourage first-time donors from the Rotaractors. And by the way, I keep using the phrase when I speak with Rotaract that E-Ray is what we live by, every Rotarian every year, but really we need 2 R's. It should be every Rotarian and Rotaractor every year. So that's part of the messaging to Rotaract. We also want to better communicate to Rotaractors the impact that our donations make. Make sure they see the results of the money that we spend. And that's really critical because our young professionals have a real desire to make the world a better place. They need to see what we're doing with that money. We also want to highlight Rotaractors that are participating with both giving and projects. And we want to focus the donor engagement for Rotaractors, especially on the areas of focus, especially the environment and of course Polio Plus, because they do have a keen support for environmental programs. And finally, they strongly encouraging district governors to appoint Rotaractors to district committees. It's kind of another reminder that we need to make sure that our districts are including Rotaractors on district committees, in this case specifically on any committees having to do with the Rotary Foundation. So they basically should be involved in everything Rotary is doing. I think those were the highlights of the trustee meeting. Be happy to answer any questions. And I see some chats in here.
If you have any questions for Jeremy or Barry, please post them in the chat.
I see one from John Smarge concerning Zone 2627 pilot project. Why would the board approve this rather than wait for Shaping Rotary's Future Committee to roll out the entire program? I can give a stab at that. When it came to the Rotary Foundation, the trustees unanimously voted to send it to Shaping Rotary's Future and sent a request to the board to consider the same thing. So that Shaping Rotary's Future could make sure that that pilot, while they've taken a piece of Shaping Rotary's Future's model, we want to be sure that it's going to work by itself. Basically, we're taking something out of context. So the trustees were concerned by taking it out of context. Would it work? We need the committee to take a look at it and make sure that it fits in appropriately to what the model is.
Barry, I think there are two more questions that I think are focused on the Rotary Foundation and Rotaract.
Let's see, were there any discussions about Rotaract clubs having access to grant dollars? You may not have heard that, but that was already approved 6 months ago by the foundation, that the Rotaract clubs as of July 1st, 2022 will be eligible to be hosts, either international partners or hosts for global grants. So yes, they will have access at that point in time. And has the board explored reducing RI dues for a Rotaractor that wishes to join Rotary? Well, no, I don't believe the board has looked at that. The question is going to be, for those who are both a member of a Rotaract club and a Rotary club, I believe the way the Rotary would defer to the Rotary membership, not to the Rotaract membership. The question we need to address, which we haven't, is, does that mean they drop the dues for Rotaract? But I would suspect if you're a member of both, you pay dues in both. Otherwise, you get into complications for that. There's one private direct message. Can you give status and roll out to the time frame for Shaping the Future? Well, I'm only trying to shape Rotary's future, okay, not the whole future. But the idea is that this is long-term. If we can get our pilots, as an example, New Zealand, Australia, Pacific Islands really wants to be one pilot. And they've spent 2 years working on it. We've been meeting with them sometimes every 2 weeks to assist them to develop so that it blends with the model of Shaping Rotary's Future. Next, we want to meet with every district individually, and all the district governor group, the district governor elects and nominees. So there's a whole lot of series of meetings to make sure they want to do that. And then we'll start taking it to the next step. And there may be something going to the council legislation next year to allow Rotary to do a pilot of this size. So it's not so much about the model, it's about, can we do a pilot like this? That's what would go to the council. So that's in the works. I believe we're talking 6 years out before we see that, but hopefully we'll get some results that we can report on a regular basis so we know what's going on. Is that all for me? No.
Interesting question. Data integration with Rotaract. And yeah, I know we've had some empirical experience of that recently, Stephanie and Peter, trying to get data Rotaractors that we can bring them in, for example, in promotion of the Zone Summit last year. That was a test that we tried, and I know Terry, you were involved in that. Terry Wee was involved in that. Our results at that point weren't excellent, I have to say, and there was some of the data was corrupted. So I think it's probably an ongoing process, an ongoing task. I don't know if anyone has any sort of further updates on that, on how successful that's becoming, but it is important to basically make sure we can communicate properly with them.
There's also a question in the chat from Peter Verbeek about any surplus in the budget and plans to transfer those. And actually, the board did do that at a previous meeting. And I believe the figure was, I might be wrong, Barry, was it 7 million?
7.5 million.
Yeah. So that has been done. And then there's a question also from Don Rochelle about travel. The board has another meeting on May the 7th, and they will be revisiting the current decision that stands about funding of travel after June the 30th due to COVID. So we won't know anything until after May the 7th. Okay, well, Barry and Jeremy, thank you very much for your updates, and we'll continue to monitor the chat and see if we have any leftover questions. Now to round out our meeting, Peter and I both wanted to just share some updates with you about some initiatives that are happening. And Barry shared a lot of information about Rotaractors. So the two updates that I have actually have to do with Rotaractors. The first one, Jeremy mentioned. Every year, the Rotary International president thinks about conferences, presidential conferences that he would like to have or she would like to have during the course of the year. This year, President Holger decided that he wanted 3 presidential conferences that were to be developed by Rotaractors. And I am so proud, Peter and I are just ecstatic, and Barry and Jeremy, that our local Rotaract MDIO, the Ascension Rotaract Network, was responsible for winning one of those conference positions. And they have put together the presidential conference that will be held on May 14th to the 16th, entirely on Zoom. And the purpose of the conference is it's a weekend to help us learn about building partnerships between Rotaractors and Rotarians. So in addition to fabulous speakers, you know how young professionals are. They've got entertainment, they've got a lot of technically fabulous things going on. So I hope you will find time to register to attend. It is free. It is probably one of, if not the last chance that you'll have to hear President Holger in our zones during the course of his year. We have about 70,000 Rotarians in our zones and about 5,000 Rotaractors. So you are likely to hear at least 1 or 2 or 3 great ideas about collaboration. And additionally, when you register, you have an opportunity, it's voluntary, but you have an opportunity to participate in a virtual fundraiser that will support the Rotary Foundation Disaster Response Fund. If you're a Rotarian, they're asking for a contribution of $25, voluntary. If you're a Rotaractor, they're asking for a contribution of $10, voluntary. So those are all great reasons why you should not miss this event on May 14th, 15th, and 16th. Our Zone IT Administrator, Terry Weaver, has sent that information out this week. So if you didn't get it, please email one of us on the call today, myself or Peter or Barry or Jeremy, and we will make sure that you do get that information so that you can participate in that weekend. The second update I wanted to give you is about an initiative that has been rolling along strong now for about 6 months, and that's our zone initiative called Rotary Works. I think you all know that Rotary Works is an initiative for Rotaractors and Rotarians who are in career transition. and it's presented by Rotarians and Rotaractors in our zones. I am so extremely proud of this team of volunteers. We have Rotarians and Rotaractors who are working on all of the segments of this initiative. Every month there are career seminars. I'm sure all of you have seen them advertised, and I hope that you have participated in one or more. And the topics are varied. They range from how to start your own business to where's my focus if I'm looking for a job. They have all been well attended, and they are all recorded, and you can find them on the website rotary.works. Additionally, another program in the initiative is our career coaching section. If you need, or if you know of somebody in your club, in your Rotaract club or your Rotary club who would like to get a mentor, you can do that through visiting that website. If you would like to be a mentor, if you're at that stage in your career, you would like to give back, this is a great vocational service opportunity. You can do that by visiting that website. Additionally, our job board is now open. I'm not sure, I think that may have a different URL. Terry, if it is, please drop it in the chat. But there's a place where you can post positions that you have available, whether they're full-time, part-time, seasonal, volunteer. If you're looking for work, it's a place that you can look for those job opportunities. We have a work group from our team that's now looking at regionalizing the job board so that we actually have opportunities that will make sense to where people are looking. Because a Rotaractor in Trinidad is not going to be interested in a job in Pittsburgh. I don't think so. So we really need to make it regionalized. And with the help of Audley Knight, our regional membership officer, we're also looking at language translations for parts of our program. So the coaching is open, the job board is open, the mock interview program is open, and of course our career strategy seminars are continuing. Many people have asked me, is this initiative going away on June 30th when I do? And the answer is no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to not be a Rotary International Director. I'll be a past director, but this initiative will keep going. And I thank all of you in the clubs and the districts who have supported the project. One of the final pieces of that project I want to talk about is the Impact Fund. You know that part of this program that makes it so different from other things is that we have created a one-time grant application award of $500. To date, the Impact Fund Review Committee has looked at 8 applications and has funded 5 of those requests. So there is a review team, there is a process, there is a rating sheet, and the team always has 5 Rotarians and or Rotaractors who look at the information, and it's anonymous. All of the applications are given a number, so there's only one person in the entire zone who knows what application belongs to a person's name. So I'm really excited about that, and we have received a lot of funding from districts and clubs, and we're also looking now at corporate support. So if you have any ideas about that, I hope you'll shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to contact anybody that you think might want to support this great vocational service project. So with that, I'm going to stop, and I'll turn it over to my colleague and friend, Peter, and see what he would like to share with you today.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Barry, and thank you, Jeremy. Great presentations. So I'm also going to talk about 2 zone initiatives and one upcoming event. The first of the zone initiatives goes under the acronym ICA. Many of you will have heard of this. It stands for Innovative Club Advocate. And this stems from an initiative started by President Mark Maloney about 18 months ago, what he called the Grow Rotary Initiative. And the idea was to focus very heavily on forming new clubs as the most efficient way of enhancing membership. So pursuant to that initiative, both zones appointed 2 innovative club advocates. In Zone 33, it's Chris Jones and Patrick Eakes. In Zone 34, it's Mike Darragh, Drew Monaghan, and we've co-opted George Robertson Burnett. They received training in Evanston early last year on what this position entailed. And we then developed a district ICA network. In each district, there is an innovative club advocate. And the idea is to work with them alongside the Rotary coordinators and the district membership chairs to develop new clubs. And we've had a lot of success. Quite a few new clubs have been formed in both zones. There are a lot more in the pipeline. I'm really hoping that we can finish strong. I'd love to be able to reward Stephanie for 2 years of hard work by announcing that we have a great increase in new clubs. We've had a number of cause-based clubs, veterans clubs, a club, the Friendship Knot, Boy Scouts. We've had a whole variety of cause-based clubs. We've had some satellite clubs, e-clubs. It's really been quite impressive, the new clubs in formation. So I do hope that those of you who are involved with membership will take this opportunity to, in the next 2.5 months, to try and bring the various clubs to charter status. Many are very close. If all the clubs that are in formation were chartered by the end of June, I think we would increase membership by well over 1,000. So it's quite significant. The other zone initiative I want to talk about, again, goes under the acronym YPA. And again, I think many of you have heard about Youth and Peace in Action. It's an initiative to promote more peace and unity across our zones. I've been involved in advancing Rotary's peace-building agenda for many years, and I've long believed that Rotary and Rotarians have not only the capability, but the responsibility to do what we can to bridge some of the partisan divide that we see in our communities. As we know, conflict starts locally, so solutions need to be developed locally. And what better organization to work on developing peace solutions than the world's largest community-based, peace-oriented organization, namely Rotary International. So I've teamed up with 2 Rotary Peace Fellows. Again, many of you will know Patricia Schaefer and Anna Patel. And working with others, we've developed this Youth and Peace in Action, engaging young community peace builders initiative. It's rolled out across the 2 zones. We have around 20 districts that have committed to support this. We are thrilled with the response we've received. And the idea is to work with indirect students, with high school students, and engage them in a whole variety of peace-building initiatives, which then can be multiplied and expanded and hopefully form the basis for generating a more peaceful community. We're linking up with clubs. We hope to finance this through the use of the district grant process, matching with district designated funds. I'll put the website in the chat box, rotaryyouthpeaceaction.org. I encourage you to go to this website. We are told by Rotary International that this is the single largest peace-building initiative ever undertaken in the Rotary world, outside the Rotary Peace Center program. It's a very ambitious program. I'm excited about the potential. I think there's all sorts of opportunities. We've had many, many clubs contact us wanting to be part of it. It's not too late. We're looking to launch this initiative on World Peace Day, September the 23rd. And there's a whole series of events that will follow up. We're in the process of preparing materials, videos, curriculum. Quite a lot of work is being done behind the scenes. And as I say, I think this is going to be a significant initiative in our 2 zones. I'm getting a lot of interest from outside the zones, other parts of North America, and indeed outside the US. So please take a moment to go to the website, youthpeaceaction.org. There's a load of materials there. There are videos. There's all sorts of materials that you can find out more about this exciting initiative. And finally, I just want to mention the Rotary event of the year is coming up at the end of September. The Rotary Summit will be held in Naples, Florida, at the Naples Grand Resort Hotel. It's a fabulous hotel. I see John Smarge is on the line. Many of the old timers may remember that John had his institute at this hotel 10 years ago. And I think one of the districts actually had their district conference at the hotel last weekend. This is going to be a fabulous event where the theme is to bring back the band. Sadly, we weren't able to get together last year for Stephanie's summit in Pittsburgh. Hopefully, you will consider attending the summit. We have a very attractive room rate, $159 plus taxes, lots of benefits. Naples is a fabulous city. The weather's going to be great. We have Jennifer Jones will be speaking as a keynote speaker. Sang Koo-Yun, the vice chair of the trustees, will be speaking. And we have a whole raft of breakout sessions, entertainment, all sorts of things that you will enjoy. So again, please go to the website. You can register. Registration is now open, both for the event and for the hotel. The hotel is charging $400 a day at the moment. We have reserved a large number of rooms, but we anticipate that these rooms will be taken up fairly quickly. Already there's been quite a large number of people have registered on the site. So end of September, early October, be there or be square. Stephanie, thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Barry. That's all I wanted to contribute. So back to you, Stephanie.
All right. Thanks to all three of my colleagues for some great updates and some great information. And thanks to all of you on the line, on the call, for making time to be with us this evening so that we can share important information about what happens at your Rotary International Board and Foundation meetings. We will be having at least one more all call, possibly two, because as you heard, the Board of Directors will be meeting on May the 7th. And I understand there is a second meeting in May being planned, and we have a meeting in June as well. And of course, our trustees are meeting monthly. So stay tuned. We will set those dates. They typically occur, as this one has, at 5 o'clock in the late afternoon on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. So again, thank you so much for participating tonight, and we'll see you again. Have a good evening.